All right, I'm gonna change the image here. Make sure I get the right one.
Oh. It's not as dramatic as I hoped.
Is it not dramatic enough?
It's not as dramatic as I hoped, but I think it's okay. There you go.
What? You said you had some things prepared for this.
Yeah, just questions, I guess. What are some things that you guys relied on to create these drawings?
I relied on the previous class where you said take away, don't just add.
Yeah.
So as soon as I saw that picture and you said we're focusing on values, I was like, I'm gonna focus on removing and not adding as the start. That's how I approached it.
That's good. Wait, so you started with like a gray, a midtone?
Yeah.
Good.
And then my primary focus the entire time was adding more and then taking away.
Yeah, that's good.
And then I do things, like initially I saw a bunny rabbit and an apple. So my brain was my brain was defining it, and so I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna define it. Like, sure. I'm gonna put a bunny and an apple.
So
There's a tree too, I don't know.
My hope was to avoid that specifically.
My brain did it, man. I couldn't control it.
So yeah, the way we set you all up today, we really wanted to get you away from naming things as much as we possibly could.
There's also a flower. I'm really sorry.
So with that said, that's a good point though, right? Like, how do you create a space that you can't name? What do you guys do when you're presented with something like this, where you can't locate yourself, you can't quite put a finger on what it is? What do you rely on?
I was relying a lot on shapes that I could see, and mine even like looking at it, it looks very geometric.
Which one's yours?
The second.
Second one?
Yeah.
What's the first thing that you guys gravitated towards? So back to the first mark thing, right? How did you start the drawing?
I think it was the horizon for me.
The horizon?
Yeah, I kind of went the dark blocks.
The darks? Is there anyone else that's different? I know Nova said you were carving out light.
Yeah.
What about you, Marina?
I also start from I was just trying to understand what is the darkest and the lightest parts. So I started from the sky, the horizon.
Horizon.
Good.
So what I hear is horizon, the dark shapes, the light shapes, so values. Am I missing anything? Anna, what did you say?
Shapes.
Shapes, the general shapes.
Edges. Was that mentioned?
No, they didn't mention that part.
Different types of edges. This one feels really, the edges feel really soft. Similar to what we have projected up there.
So
yeah, do you want to say
you
something?
want to say something?
So I'm reading this Hans Hoffman book right now. And these are just his notes, so take it for I don't know that they always make sense, so take it for what it is. Where was it here? Just a second. Teaching which represents the Renaissance tradition has deteriorated to a method of mere visual reproduction, where perspective, anatomy, dynamic symmetry, and other scientific formulas have been placed as obstacles to the natural creative process of painting. And so the way we're setting you up in here today, by putting this blurry, kind of ambiguous, blobby thing up on the wall, we're trying to draw out how you naturally see. And of course, that's something that has to be learned, right? As crazy as that seems, that has to be learned. That's why we have like the SVSS stuff that helps us get back to that. And not to pick on you, Nova, but we all do this. We all want to name things, and we have to find ways to work around that as artists. We all have to find a personal way of dealing with that. And so that's kind of what he's getting at here. We can rely on these things that we remember, anatomy and perspective and this and that, but how does one actually just simply see? So that's what we're trying to do with this today.
Will you remind me what SPSS stands for?
Oh, did we talk about that in here?
Yeah. Wait,
That's
we not
passing it.
We may not have talked about it. Anna's probably so tired of hearing this.
Wait, hold on. We have two people that have done this before.
Oh yeah, Marie.
So you guys are gonna walk us through what
Yeah, that's
SPSS.
good.
Okay. SPSS is an acronym for Squint, Viewpoint, or no, Viewfinder. That's where you like do that.
Step back.
Step back and I was reading the last test.
It's the least used of the four.
I was
Yeah.
citing.
Just finding angles is how we typically do. There's a lot more to that, but we.
We get that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's where you hold up like a straight edge
Okay.
to what you're looking at and you find the angle.
From further away, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Okay. We did do that.
Yeah, just using a paintbrush to translate angles. That's it.
Okay.
Sure.
So earlier, kind of just bringing it back to what you guys talked about, right? Like when you are presented with things that you can't quite name, what we rely on is the thing that we can, like rhythm, right? Things that we can kind of have structure towards. So all the things that you guys have named is a structural device, which I think is really important to know. And it also gets at what Jacob's talking about. We're not trying to we're not trying to get at the naming part of things. So, you know, the value shapes, the horizon line, all of these things are structural to the image. And so that kind of brings us to the next part, which I think is also really important as we continue on, even though it's just another hour and a half, and then one more class, is this idea of visual pathways. How does an image present itself? Whether it be abstraction or representation. Just by looking at the image, we can kind of make out the horizon line, like you said. There's some sort of mirroring happening between the top 1/3 and the bottom 1/3 in the way that these things are being arranged, the light shapes, right? How are we entering into the image and how are we exiting? Are we exiting? How are the dark shades arranged in a way that moves us around the painting? Or how are the lines being arranged? Given that this is kind of blurry right now, we can't really quite see the detail, but the general shapes are there, right? So I just want to encourage you all to really find something beneath just what the image is. Find the structure of the image, find the scaffolding. Maybe it's the movement of the piece. How is the rhythm being established through the shapes, the language of shapes? What else can you think about?
Well, there's also this huge upside down triangle
Yeah.
that most of you are starting to find, but maybe it could be emphasized a little bit.
And how are these individual things, right, relating to the overall rectangle? Because that experience is now being contained by the four edges. So I think all of these things are really great to think about as you continue drawing. The image is only going to get sharper. So we don't want you to miss out on the hidden structure. To us, that's where the poetry happens. It's the visual poetry. It's the rhythm and the, what else? And what else is it within the poetry?
Oh, I don't know, symmetry and
Yeah.
repetition and rhyming and things of that nature.
Yeah. What else? Any other thoughts?
Not at the moment. We'll have, I guess, two more phases.
Two more, yeah. Continue to squint. It might get overwhelming at some point. I notice that parts of it starts to become, for example, I'm looking at the second one from the right.
Squint at their drawings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Squint at the drawing and then look at the image again, just to kind of compare notes. Perhaps some parts are overly punctuated.
Yeah.
right? Maybe you need to take a step back. That's where the SPSS comes in handy, right? The squinting, the image is kind of doing that for you, but if you squint and look at your own drawing, then you can kind of match the values a little better. Viewfinder, that's already done once again because that image is being contained. So you need to find a relationship of the edges to the forms contained within the edges. Stepping back is going to be pretty important, I think, for this one specifically, because you have to be able to see the two together and compare notes. And then I guess citing is handy too, because Anna talked about how things feel a little geometric, right? So what I encourage you all is to find not just the way that these things are existing in space, but how does this exist in relation to something else in the image. So it does feel pretty vertical, but there's actually a lot of movement pushing you that way, right? So like really establishing relationship between form and citing can come in handy because you can kind of get the general angle or direction of certain lines or shapes and whatnot. Is that good?
I think so. Do you all have any thoughts or questions or anything right now?
I do a lot of jigsaw puzzles, and it reminds me of that. Like you find some little weird shaped blob, and you don't know what it is, and you're trying to figure out where it fits with the other blobs, and not like the big picture.
Yeah. I like that you said that because a lot of the times when we talk about shapes, we compare them to a puzzle.
Yeah.
They're interlocking, meaning when you put them together, they're fitting as one piece. So they're not in isolation.
This moment here, there's this nice tension, right?
Yeah.
Everything's locking together.
I guess before we move on, I just want to hear each person say one thing that they might want to introduce to the drawing or start doing differently.
That's good. Yeah.
I want more ambiguity in mine. Like I want to
Also-
soften the edges.
Soften the edges.
Define it a little bit less, I guess.
For me, it's more work with the midtones.
And then tones, where's yours, Maria?
This one.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
I was thinking the opposite. They need to go darker.
Is yours that one?
Mine's a lot.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, I think that's good. Going darker. Because the only real, first of all, there may not be any real white
Yeah.
in that, but I guess you also don't have much white in yours. Anyways, I'm not going to ramble. It's good. Is there one more?
Here.
I mean, I think mine started being all these individual shapes in one. And so I need to blend them and check where they are in relation to each other.
Yeah.
Figure out what needs to pop and what needs to receive.
That's great.
Yeah, great answer. What needs to pop and what needs to receive? I like that.
Yeah. We'll go on our quote wall. Great.
All right, let's see. I guess we'll just get back set up and keep working.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have time for discussion. Yeah.
At the end.
At the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sweet. Good work. Keep going.
That actually makes more sense with the picture because I was so confused why the top was so.
Wow. I'm still blown away that that's
Oh, my bad.
You're good.
Boys, you can come up here and look at the phone if you need to. Man, I wish I could get that a little bit.
It's behind you. Oops, sorry.
Why is he so tall?
Good question.
Jesus was 7 feet tall.
I thought the flag was.
What's that?
Sweet. What did we do today?
Wow.
What is this?
You got Jesus rolled.
So how do you feel like starting from a blurred, upside down, black and white image affected your process?
Well, it proves to me that I should not be predicting what things are.
Why?
Yeah.
So it was not a bunny.
I never even saw them. I'm not gonna ask questions.
No, yeah.
Just keep moving.
That was a good lesson.
You're right. It was definitely not a bunny.
Yeah, it was nice to help detach from what it might be and just try to capture what you were seeing and where they fit.
Trust it.
Yeah.
Yours is
I'm the second
one. Okay, cool.
I think it made you focus on the big picture because you couldn't really zoom in on anything and hyper-fixate on details at first. Which was your same last or last?
Interesting. I just realized this. You always have sharp edges in your paintings. When you were painting in our other class, you always had sharp edges, and today you still had those edges, even early on with the blurred image.
I think it took out some of the intimidation too. Like if you had started and said, today we're going to do this. Heck no.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
I think the passage in the bottom third is really nice across all the drawings. Because there's such a way that you guys are arranging the values, you're finding these shapes. It almost feels like they just ended up being a figure, right? So it's a lot more surprising, I think.
Yeah.
Nice as that.
Yeah.
I love the bottom third.
Oh. Yeah, I keep looking at this, the way that this horizon line kind of merges at the neck, but the neck is not really defined, right? We just naturally can formulate the experience of this being a neck. So what ended up happening is the light is kind of engulfing the figure in a way that makes sense. It makes sense in the space. Yeah, it's really lovely. There's a lot of light. Even in the middle one. Much softer, right? Much softer.
I want to hear from each of you a passage of the drawing that you think is working well, or that excites you.
So what of the drawing?
A passage, just an area of the drawing that excites you. Hopefully you each have one.
Weirdly, mine is the person who's got their head in their hands, even though.
I'm glad you didn't say bunny. I was ready for it.
No, it's okay. I was struggling to define, no, it's the louder the louder. Yeah. So, like, whoever that is, but that for some reason, I wanted to, I don't know, that's it for me. I don't think that, I'm not judging the quality of what I did, but it was the most compelling to attempt for me.
Yeah, I'm the next one, and I was surprised to see that figure in my drawing when we flipped it, and then be able to carve in a little more detail to really set it in place. And then I also was surprised with the light on Jesus' chest, like it's down the middle, the right side is dark, and then the folds, and the left side is really light and bright, and I didn't even really see that until now.
Who's the middle?
It's mine. So for me, I think it was like trees, lazy splendor.
So
I think on the original picture it's pretty still, but in my, it kind of came up. I feel like there's a width and certain things, and I like it.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you point that out again and say what it is?
Like here.
Yeah. Yours is so that's yours, right? It's so cohesive. It feels really unified.
For me, the figure with the mustache. I didn't even think that was a person until we looked it over. But for me, that's the mark.
You're finding strong economy in your work. When you put down a mark, it just does its job, and then you move on, and that's really nice to see.
I don't know. I guess I like the bottom part, kind of. I struggle with faces at different angles, and the faces you could see were at such weird angles. I didn't know where to put their features, so I left one blank, and then the mustache guy looks nice. But I like the guy all the way to the left. I really didn't have to do much to him. Like when I flipped it over, it was like just kind of there. It was interesting.
I like the contrast in rhythms on either side of Jesus. The patterns that are forming there, it's nice.
How important was it for you guys to know what you were drawing?
I think for me at first I wanted it. I was like, what? But then once I knew, then I didn't want to know. Really?
Yeah, so I was like, oh man, now we
What changed though? Why was that? Why was it that once you knew what it was,
Because I guess I wasn't appreciating the freedom of not knowing while I didn't know.
That's great.
That's really great.
That's so loaded. I very much value my ignorance. I don't know.
No, right.
Yeah.
Like there's something to that, right?
Or just like the process of figuring it out. Like I value that a lot.
I kind of want to spend a little more time on that area of
Yeah,
the
that's
freedom
good.
of not knowing. What is that space offering you guys exactly?
Possibility.
I think it's allowing my brain not to draw what I think I'm seeing. You know what I mean? Like, 'cause, you know, how we were trying to, like you were seeing a cat or holding an apple, and, you know, and I did that too, but just really allowing me to see the shapes and the values for what they were.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's really loaded. There's a lot there.
Yeah.
I want to read something just because I'm thinking about it, and I just think it's really nice. So we only took the last few minutes today to say, you know, make it your own if you need to. So this is what I'm reading is like almost the opposite of what we did today, but maybe it's a good follow-up for that reason. So this is Hans Hofmann book. He is a very influential figure in art education, and it's kind of like when we talk about our school, we always sort of go back to Hoffman. So he said, "It is in conformity with the temperament and in conformity with the accumulation of experience which he has gained through his work that he uses his means of expression when he is of a more lyric." God, that's kind of wordy. I feel like I need to preface it. He's just talking about temperaments in the artist and finding your own temperament. But he said, when he is of more lyrical in nature, his work will have a more lyrical and poetic quality. When he is more violent in nature, he will express this in a more dramatic sense. Think of Renoir or Seurat or Klee. They are lyrical, whereas Picasso or El Greco or Rembrandt are dramatic. And so even today, when we peeled everything back and said, just copy what you see, that, you know, that still comes through. I'm just thinking of I thought of this when I saw the movement in here and how there's almost this this was, were you drawing from Squinting last week?
Yes.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, because this started to make me think of Squinting and just the swirling and maybe the complexity of it. And so anyways, I don't know exactly where I'm going with this, but I think, that's something really, really valuable. That is enough. That suffices as an artist to just these sensibilities that you cannot avoid or shouldn't avoid.
And here, we can't teach you how to experience something, right? And I think that's where the gift of every person constituting a classroom makes it really special each time, because you experience whatever in your own very unique way, and it comes through in the drawings, right? Which I think is really interesting. The first time when we all met, you guys are, kind of just like sent into the deep end and we just said, pick an artwork. And Kara picked Squinting, you picked Bischoff, like the columnar. I forgot who you picked, Matisse. And I think it's really interesting when we gravitate towards specific types of artworks or artists, which I think the slam trip would kind of be really nice, a nice little conclusive note. But it's really beautiful when we can experience and express these things in our own way. And what we teach here is just sensibility, right? Like being sensitive to what we're seeing, maybe cultivating a sense of awareness. And so I really like the idea of ignorance or not knowing, because it forces you to search. It forces you to think with your eyes, which is what my teacher says all the time. Graham, I talked about it in this class, and he said, think with your eyes. You don't even have to think with words, but just see what's there and just be present and respond to it. And I think there's a lot of value in doing that. But I don't know, just feel like throwing it out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not relevant, so I should just keep those on track.
I was thinking about temperament, what you said about temperament, and there's a lot going on for me recently. A friend recently died, and there's a lot happening in association with that. And that, I couldn't turn that part of my brain off to come in and do this, and it was I just want to be present with just this. But I feel like I know that affected how I was functioning and working. You know what I mean? So that makes a lot of sense to me, like the violence or the lyricism or the distortion or the whatever.
Yeah.
Like even in mine, the difference between what I erased Jesus once I knew it was Jesus and then tried to redraw him, and it so doesn't fit with the rest of the painting for me now, or the drawing. It's almost too defined or something, or I don't know. But I can see how the way I came into class today kind of affected that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think this is kind of, I don't know what time, do you know what time it is? 9 o'clock. I just, when Misa and I both, we really, really value, this is the best place to learn what we're talking about, because it applies to everything. Just learning how to be yourself in a different context. That's what we're teaching you here. It's just your eyes and you, or your brain, or whatever, and whatever habits you have, or how you see and experience the world. Anyways, great job today, and
We should just write it down too.
Yeah, we should hold on to these. Give them a couple codes and fix it.
Yeah, we hope to see you. I guess Slam, we have one more class, and then we have a follow-up class after this.
Let's meet in the main lobby of Slam at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
It should be easy to find each other there.
Can you send a reminder?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll
Or
try.
even the day before?
Yeah.
I'll try. I'll try to
The
remember.
reminder will be when you come here and the door's locked.
be on for the plane at 8:55, so if I'm somehow late, I will find you guys. Okay.
Yeah, just a sketchbook, pencils, eraser, right? Something simple.
I don't do they allow pen? I would bring a pen regardless.
Yeah.
Because it's better to draw. I think it's better to draw with a pen. They might tell you not to use it, but just bring it anyway.
Yeah.
So pencil, eraser.